And so I was like, I want bacon and tomato. And everybody just broke out laughing. It was hilarious. It was so it was hilarious. Anyway, let's get to it. Well, welcome to Cars and Kicks. This is a follow-up episode to an episode we did a little while ago. A couple of weeks ago about Dom and our shoe surgeon and everything that's going on with him at Nike and some other people that have been being sued by Nike. And we have a special guest today. But before we get to that, obviously, we have to do our intro. And I've been working on another intro for the show. Oof. I've been feeling a little churchy.
Okay.
So that's where we're going. Okay. So this one is we got your cars and kicks. We've got your cars and kicks. We got your cars and kicks to get your fix. So come on and listen to Cars and Kicks. That's kind of where I was feeling now.
Were you going to church in the 50s? Or like, because that's some doo-wop right there.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I'm
into it.
Touch.
I'm into it.
I wanted to touch people in a very special way, like get to their soul, their spirit.
Wow.
The spirit of the ancestors to fill the intro.
I mean, I think people are standing up and just, clapping along right off the top. So this is a good start to the pod for sure.
100%.
This is a good one. Good start to the pod. Welcome to the show, everyone. My name is Jacques Slade. I am the affable idiot of the show, and I'm here with two incredible co-hosts, Nick Engvall and Erik Valdez, and I'll let them give you their own bona fides. Erik, you know what? I'll do it. Erik's a superstar actor. He's on TV shows and stuff, and Nick runs Sneaker History. He's a consultant for the sneaker industry. He has about 1 million pairs of sneakers, including a pair from when he was a baby, by the way.
Oh.
And he loves cars. Erik loves cars. I love cars, but just not as much as them. They're like in a romantic relationship with cars.
Yeah.
And cars and I we're friends. And I'm trying to get into a relationship.
Although
they're my relationship coach for cars.
Yes. Although Jacques has gravitated away from the Nissan Altima, he is our resident Altima expert. So neither one of us can touch that space, Nick nor I. So if y'all have Altima questions, by all means, hit Jacques up on Instagram.
I watched him change his brakes, so I know he's got a little more car guy in him than he leads on.
Yeah.
Also, for those of y'all watching, it looks to me like Jacques, I knocked the beard down a little bit. It looks like Jacques is we got something going on there, man.
Yeah.
Old man assassin is no more.
Yeah. I was on vacation for the last week. And so I just came back and I haven't shaved.
Well, all right.
And I hope you guys are comfortable with seeing this new look on my face because it's going to be here for this episode. So I can't shave between now and the end of the episode. So we're going to be all right.
I got some really hard light coming in on my face too. So this is off to a great start professionally.
We're off to a great start today. But more importantly, a few weeks ago, we had an episode about Dom and the situation that he's going through with Nike. And we got a lot of great feedback from the community about it. So thank you guys that listened to the show and provided feedback. There are tons of comments, both on my personal and on the Cars and Kicks Instagram and the Twitter. Really, asking a lot of questions. Two, telling us that we're idiots, which we get and we appreciate that.
Thank you.
But three, also, it seemed like there was a lot of people that were seeking more information and more accurate information. Not that we weren't accurate, but we wanted to go and bring somebody on the show. Our first guest, in fact, that could give us real concrete information that is undeniable. And so that, I don't want to say this harshly, but so y'all would shut the hell up. It's kind of where we were going with that. So without further ado, I know
Jacques got a lot of DMs that he's got something out for people here.
Yeah, I'm angry. I've got things to say today. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to Zak Kurtz. He is a partner. Is partner the right word, Zak? Is that the right word to say? Or is this your law? Are you a principal? I know there's a difference, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess they're both sort of the same. But yeah, I go with principal because it's only me. It's me and I got a great paralegal and a couple other team members. So small team.
There you go.
Sweet.
He is the principal at Sneaker and Streetwear Legal Services. And they actually broke the information about the suit with Dom. And that's how the information spread. So if you didn't see anybody credit them back, their team is the one that put the sneaker and streetwear world on notice about the suit. So we have tons of questions for you, Zak. And the best way I can say for this to go smoothly is just to explain it to us like we're 5-year-olds. And that would make everybody comfortable and a level of understanding for everyone. And I'm going to let Nick and Erik jump in here, but I wanted to get the first question off. And can you define for us what counterfeit means?
Yeah, there actually is a legal definition. It got brought up in a couple cases recently. And I guess to break it down, most simply, it's really just making an exact replica or, copy of a shoe and trying to pass it off as that shoe. Like, for example, when people, Brooklyn Air Force Ones, any high Nike shoe that comes out, there's always an exact copy that people sell. And, there's a whole rep community out there now. So that would sort of be a counterfeit, as opposed to, another word that they throw out is bootleg or something, where, Jacques talked about it last time, where, they'll take the trade dress or the shape of a Jordan 1 or Air Force 1, and they'll slap their own logo on, the Cars and Kicks logo on the side of something like that. That Nike sort of throws it all in together in these lawsuits because it's best to bring as many, claims as you can. But essentially, there is a difference between those two. It's trademark infringement versus a counterfeit item.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, see, that goes back to a lot about what we were talking about. This is, I'm not a lawyer, but it is not counterfeit what Dom was doing, what the shoe surgeon's doing. And legally speaking, I think we can back that side of it up so far.
Yeah, I mean, diving straight into it, in the lawsuit, they sort of defined 2 areas of products that Dom allegedly was doing. One were just, what is it called? I think it was infringing new products. And the other was the C word that you guys mentioned, counterfeit kind of, products like that. And they differentiated between the two. The infringing new products, they said, are when he sort of used a base shoe and, purchased that rightfully, lawfully, and, customized that. Whereas the counterfeit ones are allegedly, he just made his own shoe up, and, just being someone in the industry who knows sneakers and knows how you customize them, it's very rare that people are, making their own molds, because those cost a lot of money. Most of the time, you're going to buy a Nike shoe or you're going to buy another shoe and use that bottom, So if they're doing it with a Nike shoe, I think that's a big difference than doing it with an Alibaba Nike shoe or a mold that they make themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So can you, what is, when you say infringing new product, what does that mean?
And then again, these are just definitions from the complaint. In my opinion, Nike did a great job. I mean, you guys said it last time. They drafted this complaint, really well to put as much care and fear into the sneaker community and everyone else as they can by using these kind of big words. And, it was 60-some pages, 63 pages. So they put everything in there, So these are just really words that Nike made up. But, their definition, infringing new product, was sort of our definition of a custom sneaker. They're saying it's not a completely brand new product that he made from scratch, but it is something that he uses, a new purchased authentic Nike Air Force One, and just scraps it and takes the bottom, or just adds. Like I went to his class yesterday. Here we go, live action for you guys.
Oh,
I took a shoe surgeon class. So I want to check it out, and these are what I made. These are the what's it called? Drake Air Force One. I mean, literally, I bought this straight from Nike, and my girlfriend went with me, and we went to Nike before we went to the class, purchased an Air Force One for her, so we both rightfully purchased that Nike shoe, and we painted on it. We made our own little Bugs Bunny carrot kind of version.
I was gonna say, is that a carrot?
Yeah, I like the Bugs Bunny vibe. They're pretty fire, right? Not bad. I want to like Josh Veed's off-white, kind of vibe, and then I put a carrot on the side for good old Bugs. That was just me messing around, and that's an example of what Nike would call an infringing new product. I think it was a product. Yeah, infringing new shoe, infringing new product.
So let me ask you this then: what kind of weight does that hold legally? Does the sneaker community? Because I touched on this a bit in our last pod, where basically alluded to the fact that if you go and you purchase the sneaker, because that is Nike's goal, is to sell a sneaker. Once you, Joe consumer, has purchased a sneaker, they've completed their task. That's their job as Nike. So if I decide to go and do what you did and draw all over it with Sharpie, etc., and go sell it on Facebook Marketplace or whatever as my own creation, not as an authentic, officially licensed Nike product, can they legally come after me? And what kind of weight does that hold?
I mean, so I guess two-part answer. Nike has $1 billion, so they could do whatever the heck they want, But, to your first question, can they legally do that, And I think the example used there, I say no, There's a legal doctrine called the first sale doctrine. And essentially what that says is once the first sale is made of a trademarked product, a Nike Air Force One, anything like that, you could, resell it. You could resell others' trademarks legally without getting in trouble.
Right.
There are some exceptions to that. And this is sort of where custom sneakers come in. So taking it a step back, every reseller that we see nowadays will buy hit on sneakers, buy a shoe for retail, mark it up 10 times. Totally fine. You could do that under the first sale doctrine.
Okay.
The minute and then these exceptions kick in. So the minute I materially alter a shoe and try and resell that shoe, then the first sale doctrine is not a good defense because that enters into the kind of area of trademark infringement. And that's what all these crazy cases really rely upon. Like I said, resellers, they do that all day. They're not materially altering the shoe. They're selling the shoe brand new DS,
Right.
But when I materially alter a shoe and try and resell it, then there's a lot of other factors that kick in. And that's really what this lawsuit talks about. Lawsuit has a lot, but that's part of what the lawsuit talks about. When he's reselling the shoe, the disclaimers on his website, the language on his website, you guys touched on that, which is a great point, that no one even thinks about. But that's when all that kind of stuff kicks in. Is there an association with the product you're selling and Nike? Do people know that that's a shoe surgeon shoe, or do people think that's a Nike and a shoe surgeon shoe, or just a new Nike shoe?
Interesting.
And, there's a lot of factors in there. I think, to me, it's someone in the sneaker industry who knows the shoe surgeon, and there's a lot of people who aren't even in the sneaker industry and knows who he is, and that will definitely play in his favor because his notoriety would help avoid confusion. The minute you see his logo or his name on a shoe, it's a custom sneaker.
Right.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to ask kind of in regards to that. So we also talked about Singer Porsches, which are essentially like taking old Porsches, completely stripping them down and rebuilding them to a very high standard. Now, they also kind of went through a similar legal situation in the past few years. And one thing that I noticed after we put that episode out, as I was watching some of their content, the disclaimers, Dom, the shoe surgeon, has something along the lines of you're paying for this as a commission or service type of thing. Now, in my mind, I thought that you would probably just have that on your website where you're actually clicking to purchase something. But I noticed a few days after our show went out, looking at one of the Singer content pieces that went out, they actually put that disclaimer in the very beginning of all of their videos now. It's almost like the same legal kind of statement at the bottom of the website is now a intro to their videos. Is there much reason to distinguish that from different places, or is it about where the person is making the purchase? And how do you look at that from a legal perspective?
Yeah, I think it's a great thing to know. Every time I see that on commercials and stuff, it reminds me of those old lawyer ads and stuff. And, nowadays, I feel like every product, I can't even think, the company, the pharmaceuticals and stuff, every ad is a million disclaimers.
Oh, yeah.
And to your point, those are done for a reason. Every industry, almost, I'm not going to say every, but a lot of industries have that, from, the pharmaceutical industry to the car industry to what we're talking about today, which is custom cars, custom sneakers. And those are all done for a reason. And there's a lot of case law. I was reading up, in the past week about all these new cases, and, we'll talk about some of them today. Some of them are cool car cases, but to your point, those are done for a reason. And the purpose of putting a disclaimer up there is to, if it's in the pharmaceutical industry, is to warn people about side effects and all that kind of stuff. But with these customs, it's really just to avoid confusion, like there's a new case that just came out, Rolex v. Becker Time. And I think that's a precedential case. It deals with Becker Time as a company who resells and sells Rolex watches. But what they do is they'll get a Rolex from someone and they'll put a custom aftermarket bezel on, or, they'll add pieces to it. Yeah. And when they sold it on their website, they'd sell it as a genuine Rolex because, it is a genuine Rolex. It just has one, every watch is different, but one little piece is aftermarket or different. And Rolex said, hey, you're using our logos to sell your product. You're saying it's genuine when A, we don't think it's genuine because you're adding these things. but we also think it's counterfeit because you're adding these pieces so it's not authentic. And Becker's a small company and ended up like, actually fighting Rolex because they wanted to prove a point here. And essentially, the court found that they did infringe them, but eventually what the outcome was is that Becker can do this. However, they have to put disclaimers on their websites and on their products. And, they can only use the genuine logo, the genuine Rolex logo and comments on certain, aftermarket parts that they fix. If it's a bezel, it can't be called genuine. And on the watch, it has to say customized by Becker time. So
Interesting.
Very-
Like
and
the
there's a lot of
reimagined on the Singer Porsche badge and everything. Yeah.
Exactly.
makes
Exactly what you were just saying. So it's in the cases that we're talking about with sneakers and like trademarks and fashion, it's usually to avoid confusion.
Yeah.
Got it. And so the whole thing that Nike's trying to do now is saying, in a sense, they're saying the stuff that Dom is making is being mistaken for actual Nike product or a collaboration with Nike, when most people within the community, and I would say outside of the community, the populace knows that these are custom sneakers and these aren't made by Nike, that they were actually made by a third party. And so it seems like the solution, based on what we've discussed so far, is for Dom to start saying, this is not an official Nike product on his site, as when he's selling the shoe per se, as opposed to what's on the website where it says I'm giving this as a service.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. He does. Dom's the man in the industry. He's he's been on Entourage. He's been on crazy shows and does stuff for everyone. So he's a guy that Nike should work with and wants to work with. And I think that partnership sort of is what they're trying to fix here. Like find his lane and make sure that he does what you said. Whether it's putting up those disclaimers, I think that can't hurt. I think that definitely will help avoid any confusion and such, because he's done so much work that's been approved by Nike, as you saw by the lawsuit.
Right.
They mentioned a bunch of projects, but he also does custom work, one-of-one work for people,
Yeah.
And just like you said it great, Jacques. I think people in the sneaker industry and people who know who the shoe surgeon is know that the difference between, that's a custom shoe surgeon shoe versus that's a Nike shoe surgeon collab. But, if you go to his website, maybe the layman doesn't know what that is. I mean, but again, there's a lot of factors that go in his favor still to this, that, the prices and all that stuff. And his brand is just so big. So, what we're talking about ultimately is just consumers avoiding being confused between two sources, Nike and the shoe surgeon. So I think there are a lot of facts that favor him. Sorry.
Yeah, no, all good. Let me ask you this, because this is something that I kind of alluded to, and it's still based on everything you're saying here. This is still kind of my theory here. So your professional opinion, what is Nike really trying to do here? Because they're not trying to take the shoe surgeon down. Maybe they're trying to set a precedence for future, sneaker modifiers, etc. But my kind of conspiracy theory, if you will, is that this is a relatively cheap way of getting some hype behind them and adding some cool factor and street cred to the brand that maybe they're otherwise missing. I don't know the legal side of all this, but it just seems like a really great marketing move, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I could definitely see that. I totally understand where you're coming from. I mean, let's be honest. Just filing the lawsuit alone sent shockwaves globally. I mean, you guys know, like I saw it myself. Every blog covered it and did this, and the lawsuit hasn't even begun. They literally just filed the motion and just started that game. So, and the fact that he's the number one in the industry, and a lot of people learn from him too. There's a lot of people who are gonna be watching this, and just by filing it, I'm sure there's some people who are changing the way they practice already. So I think that had a big effect legally on the custom community. And I think you're right. Like from a marketing aspect, it says messages, don't F with Nike. But at the same time, there's also areas in the complaint where I saw that they acknowledged that when Dom was a, up and coming guy and he was a bespoke guy doing one-of-ones and stuff. And, essentially they said when he was a little guy, we didn't care. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah.
And I think they even said that at another time, like in this statement or something, where they were talking about, when they're doing one-of-one collabs for Nike sponsored athletes and stuff. And there's a million people out there who do that right now, I'm sure Mosh is a Nike athlete under there, but every time you go and watch a football game, there's brand new custom Nike cleats and stuff like that. So I think it also sets a, example for those guys to look at and to really just keep Nike in the loop. The main thing they want here is, I'm going to say control, but it's also like being aware of what's going on, whether it's with their athletes or in their market or with their trademarks, with their swoosh logos and all that stuff. So I think this is another way just to bring in the whole community and, sort of get more control over what's going on instead of letting customs go rampant right now.
Yeah. I was thinking, go ahead.
I was just going to say one thing that came up in our conversation, is this kind of idea that, from legal precedent, they have to kind of set examples here and there to keep things in check, right? Otherwise, people can run wild, and we've seen them get a lot more aggressive over the past 3-4 years. As people who have worked in the industry, Jacques and I have talked about this time and time again. A lot of times you see these kind of things happen from Nike and other big brands when there's a dip, when things are a little bit of a lull, when like the hype is not all there. So it's like, oh, let's go protect it. Maybe we need to like be more protective of it. One thing that I really kind of can't wrap my head around 20, 30 years later is the relationship between Nike and Bape, and how that essentially didn't even become a thing until the last couple of years. And I want to say now, like Nigo is partnering with Nike this year for the first time, and he started Bape in the 90s. Like how from a legal perspective would you look at those types of relationships? Because it's similar to what Dom is doing. Obviously they're making mass producing products, but it's kind of obvious that we can say this is a product that came from a Air Force One or whatever other shoes. And I think the second part of that is, are there any time limits, so to speak, on a brand doing that? It's almost like if you let it go for so long, you've already kind of shown, and like, does that impact these lawsuits when they actually go to court and are handled?
Yeah, those are great questions. Erik, before we got on, I pretty much told Nick and Jacques that they could be hired by my firm anytime. They do great legal research and they have good legal minds. So I think you're on point again, Nick. I mean, that Bape lawsuit was really surprising to me because, just like you said, they've been doing it forever, And if you look at Bape's answer, there are legal, defenses that you could put in there. They're nerdy words, latches and acquiescence. But in short, what those mean are you waited too long to bring this suit. By not bringing it quicker, you waived your ability to come after us, or you gave us permission to do X, Y, Z.
Interesting.
So that's why I was super interested in that case, because I thought that, oh shit, like they got a good claim, like if it actually goes to the end, then there could be precedent for the little guys, that says, Nike, you have to be on your game and bring stuff soon. You can't let these relationships, like you said, impact your vision or lawsuits and such. And ultimately, I think this is really what you guys talked about it last episode, but I think Nick hit on here as well. This is about partnerships and relationships. And Nike's a big company, and there's a legal side of stuff and there's a business side of stuff. Us lawyers, all we could really do is say, hey, if you make a shoe with a Nike logo on it, you're probably going to get sued. You have a real high risk of liability. But ultimately, it's up to the business to say, it's worth taking that risk. I'm going to make a whole bunch of counterfeit shoes, whatever it is or something like that. So I think Nike's a big company, and a lot of these times, they're making business decisions and their lawyers hopefully are talking to them. I know, it's happened and such, but sometimes they might not even talk to them because it's such a big company. So I think that might have played an impact in the Nigo thing by, they knew his name and they were talking to him and doing stuff. So maybe that's why they waited that long. But, it could have hurt them in the end if that lawsuit actually went through. It eventually settled, and, essentially Bape said, we're not going to make XYZ shoes, but we will modify it and make these other ones and stuff. So, going back to what you guys said earlier, lawsuits cost a fuckload. They cost a lot. These trademark infringement lawsuits, like for example, Nike lost the lawsuit to a company called Lontex, a trademark lawsuit last month. Lontex won $719,000 because they infringed Nike stuff, but they also said Nike has to pay us attorney's fees. Attorney's fees were $5 million.
Wow.
So they only won 719, but their attorneys racked up $5 million to take that course to the end of the thing.
Man, that explains that wall of sneakers behind you.
I wish. I'm not on that side. I help the little guys, man. But yeah, I mean, that stuff costs a lot. It adds up. It's a lot of sneakers, like you said. So I think from what I'm seeing from Nike, I don't think they do it for the money. Like I've worked with Nike attorneys and stuff, and they're all good people, and their points of view are a little different than for the creators and such. But at the same time, all these lawsuits cost a lot. Nike has a crazy big legal budget. And as you know, they have shareholders and a board to live up to. So by bringing these, it also makes them look good in their eyes. And as you said, there's a lot of stuff going on, from their sales numbers to, who's in charge to all that kind of stuff. So I think a lot of these decisions are run through the business and done, for many different reasons. And, I don't think Nike's looking to get billions of dollars out of the shoe surgeon or all these people and such, because that's not their ultimate game plan. They're in the business to sell sneakers and sell clothing.
Yeah.
Interesting. There's brings so many thoughts to my head. One, like all the people that are online caping for Nike. I hope you listen to this podcast, because I've got an E40 song for you to listen to. Yeah, you guys are out of control. The second thing is, a lot of people are saying, "Oh, well, this is because they're not suing Dom because of the one-of-ones. It's because he's doing the mass production of these things. So he's making multiple of these. And that's why they're suing him." So is there any precedent to that? Is there a differentiator with that? And then the second question is, we kind of looked at it through the lens of empire building. Once Dom became such a pop culture relevant person, they had to say something. Is that a differentiator as well?
Yeah, great points. I think, hitting on the first one, I think there is a difference. I mean, legally speaking, it would be under the same kind of doctrines and all the stuff that I'm talking about today, like the first sale doctrine and then trademark infringement and such. But to me, there is a difference. If you have a one-of-one and you're just holding it up like this, and this is for sale, versus if I go on a website and I see that same sneaker, but I see a full size run, I think from a creator standpoint, I think it's the same thing. To me, it shouldn't matter if I just made, one-of-one for you on request, or if I sat there and worked 24 hours straight and made 10 different ones. It's still, a real Nike shoe that I purchased, that I painted on, whatever. It's still like that. But, at the same time, in the complaint, you could see Nike's, arguments and how you meant, empire building, all that stuff. And, the more shoes they put on there, the more stuff like that, the more people could come and could be confused by it. Instead of having one shoe on there, it's a full size run. Did Nike approve this size run? I don't, such like that. So I can sort of see what Nike will say about that and what they did say in the complaint. But to me, I think it's, from a legal standpoint, it's really all the same. You're doing the same thing. It's just a matter of advertising, sales, marketing, all that stuff.
Right.
And that's when disclaimers, all that come in as well.
Is there a legal threshold to when it goes from like one-on-one customs to mass production? Like, does 2 automatically put you in the mass production, side of things, or can you do up to 10, say, before you start to get in trouble with the mass production language?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Unfortunately, the law doesn't like to be as easy as that. It's very rarely numbers like that. So I think you're right. That would be like a factual basis that would you have to look at for each shoe, each different thing, because to your point, they can make arguments at both sides. But you're right. Like if it's a one-of-one, to me, making one more of those could be multiple. Making a size run could be multiple. So there's no magic number, unfortunately.
Okay.
Why do you feel like this is such a? I feel like you get this from a lot of luxury brands. Why is there such a what's the word I'm looking for? An urge. Urge is not the right word, but you feel like a lot of the luxury brands are quick to sue people. Why is it? What is it about that category that gives that they're so litigious?
You're right. I noticed that too. And like just giving a couple examples and such. Chanel is very litigious against resellers. There's a case that just ended against a New York company called What Goes Around Comes Around. And they're just a reseller. Literally, they resell Chanel handbags and all this. And, Chanel just sued them and got, ended up winning. There's also, keeping it with cars, Ferrari does this. There's a couple Ferrari cases that actually got litigated for custom kits. There's a Bentley case that Dior does this. Goyard, as we know, suing the shoe surgeon. So all those names right there are high-end brands, from cars to purses and fashion and stuff. And to me, it's all about these trademarks and their brands. To them, they have them. First off, they have enough money to pay these attorneys $5 million to go fight these things, and then they really just want to, protect their brand as much as possible. They have their trademarks are so valuable.
So if you've been listening to the Cards Kicks podcast, we are on with Zak Kurtz. He is a sneaker and streetwear legal services. They are an actual firm that likes to help out the little guy that's trying to get more information on what they can do with their brand, how to grow their brand, how to protect their brand, and things like that. So make sure you check them out. Discussing a lot of the shoe surgeon case, but I think a lot of this information really applies to a lot of the cases that we've heard in the past. He's spoken on a couple of differentiators between what Dom is doing, what other people are doing, some of the luxury brands are doing, some of the car brands are doing, and really throughout the industry, how they use these lawsuits really to protect their brand, which is their right. And they should be able to protect their brand and stop any market confusion, if I'm going to use any legal terms here and act like I'm smarter than I am. They use, to protect their brand and to stop people from reselling and selling counterfeits and things like that. I would say Nick or Erik, whichever one just kind of wants to jump in. What has been, I guess, most surprising from what you've heard from Zak so far?
Nick, I think you had something to say a bit ago, so I'll let you jump in on this.
I mean, I think it's interesting how we kind of were on the right page with a lot of these thoughts and conversation that we had. It seems to get so granular when you get into the legal speak, and I think like you asked the right question with like this, what is mass production? Like it feels like mass production is anything more than one if it's convenient,
right?
But it also feels like if you put a size selector on your page and let somebody choose their size, then that can be considered mass production.
Yeah.
Which, on a, take the legal aspect out of it, that feels really petty and feels really just aggressive from Nike's perspective. And I think it's, it's like by Dom doing things to make the process easier for his customers to buy a product in their size, he's now almost paying the price, or potentially paying the price for it, depending on how this situation with Nike plays out. It's pretty unfortunate. It as somebody who, I can't get past the idea that Nike chooses to work with him so frequently on the biggest moments in their,
athletes,
athletes and just the world of Nike, right? I don't know if you mentioned this, Jacques, or if maybe I heard this someplace else, but is it true that he made the all white Travis Scott ones for the Michael Rubin party? Do you know?
He didn't, from what I've heard, he didn't make the shoes.
Okay.
So from what I've heard, is that the shoes were purchased from Nike and then sent to Dom to customize for the party. So I believe Dom made custom insoles and custom tongue tags and custom bags and packaging for them. So Nike provided their shoes through some third party source, whoever that was, whether it be Michael Rubin or Travis or Jordan or whoever, I don't know, sent them to Dom, and then Dom did all the customization for them and then sent them off to Michael Rubin's guest.
So, but this sounds like Nike is working in conjunction with Dom in kind of an underground type of thing in this
kind of underground kind of way. But from what I was told, though, this wasn't officially through Nike. This was either through Michael Rubin's team or Travis's team or somebody outside of Nike.
Okay.
Nike proper, but it was through someone who had the ability to buy all of those shoes in those sizes from Nike and then get them shipped to Dom and all that stuff made. So
because there is no all white Travis Scott, though,
Right.
Like that had to have been a full custom built shoe from somebody, which
or from Nike, or whoever it was that got them from Nike. Somebody was able to get them from Nike, but Nike couldn't do the customization features on them.
It's like a skunk works,
which makes
project.
it seem like, yeah. And if I've got to assume that Travis Scott is a huge part of this, considering it's his shoe.
Yeah.
Which makes it even weirder that Nike would even allow that to happen. Granted, we've talked about it. A lot of things happen back channels at Nike that they wouldn't admit. But like Travis Scott is arguably their number one guy right now still. As far as product releases, I don't think there's anybody that moves the needle the way he seems to still be able to with these releases, which it feels so backwards that they're doing these things, whether they know that or not. They, as Nike, are a big company, so there's plenty of opportunity for that stuff to happen, but it feels very disconnected from the lawsuit. And I would assume, and I'd love to ask Zach about this, but I would assume that from a legal standpoint, if that comes out to be true, that those shoes were sold from Nike to whomever to have them customized, that is probably problematic, because it's almost like you're feeding the beast that you are now suing for being too much of a beast.
Yeah. And I imagine, and that this probably goes to what Zach was saying a little bit earlier about the disconnect between legal and business. But he was speaking of it in the smaller creators perspective, whereas a legal representative, you can tell the smaller creator, if you put Nike's logo on something, regardless of how you come by it and resell it, they're probably going to come after you. And this is probably the same thing on the big corporation. There's this legal side that has this perspective on what should and shouldn't be done, but then there's the business that needs to make sure it's cultivating the culture of the brand and the culture of the community, and is engaging these people that have these tentpole sort of reputations in the community. And thus you have a disconnect there, and they're like, no, we're going to sue. But they're like, yo, but we fuck with Dom. And legal is like, yeah, but we think he's doing things he's not supposed to be doing. And so that gets us to where we are.
It's like a house of cards, man.
Yeah, it's so strange. It's so strange because Dom has a great reputation within the industry. He's done some great product with them, and so it's like, I guess the question is like, do they continue to work with Dom, or do they hire someone in house that's Dom? You know what I mean? That's Dom adjacent. You know what I mean? That can do these sort of wild customs one of one things, and it's like, wait a minute, you have all these designers in house. Why aren't they doing these things that you're having Dom do?
Mm-hmm.
Or
the answer to that though, right? Because they want the clout. They want the clout that comes with working with Dom, right? Like, there are great designers at Nike. There have been great designers at Nike, but most of them they do their job and then they go home, and they don't need to have a public persona outside of their design work at Nike, right? Products speak for themselves. I think this is like the big challenge for Nike right now, beyond just this lawsuit. We've talked about in the past, Tinker Hatfield is like the pinnacle designer at Nike in terms of public persona and knowledge, and everybody that thinks of a sneaker designer, you probably think of Tinker Hatfield. There's so many other guys and women and people behind the scenes that are incredible designers at Nike that choose not to have a public persona. They choose not to be on their Instagram talking about all this stuff. And, you've met with Aaron Cooper recently, and he's a great example. Tiffany Beers has kind of stepped away from the limelight, and so to speak, because she was right there designing their like pinnacle product for a little while. And I think that's a really heavy thing to carry if you're a designer that works for a brand like Nike. I'm saying this because my brother is a designer for a cycling adjacent company, recently designed some really incredible product that is slightly controversial. You could have seen it at the Olympics. I don't want to call him out specifically and put a bunch of attention on him if he doesn't want it, but the products they're going to make you think differently about what it is, and I think that attention for him and for some other designers may take away from the joy that they get from actually doing the design work, right? Because if they love just getting in the weeds, molding things together, piecing all the things together and be like, cool, here's my output. And then they have to go play the game of like, here's the mic, here's me, this is my face, I'm behind this shoe and all that stuff. Like a lot of designers don't have that kind of like coaching and that PR work that like someone like Tinker, who became that from Jordan, from his relationship with Michael Jordan and his design stuff from like literally the middle of the 80s forward. And I actually think that that's a big challenge for Nike, right? Like you've got to either pay these designers significantly more for dealing with the attention that they have to deal with outside of it, or you've got to decide, who's going to do this? How are you going to play this game where, not everybody that is an artist on the design side wants to be a public figure. That's a really tough situation to navigate, I think.
Well, here's how I see this playing out, and then I want to bring Zak back into this in maybe a little bit different format, because I want to know more about Zak. So we're going to shift gears and know more about our very first guest, because that's a very important thing. But just to kind of button this up, the way, again, my conspiracy theory thoughts are working out here is, to your point, Nick, the reason that this is the sole reason that Nike collaborates with people like Travis Scott in the first place is because you need an outsider, so to speak, in the streets who is pop culture to collaborate with your brand to give it cred, right? So even if you have designers in-house that are arguably more talented, I mean, let's be real, Travis Scott has a say in things, but he's not designing these shoes. That's somebody in-house and they're collaborating on it, right? But you need a face. I think the way this all plays out is it ends up, a lot of hype for both sides. It ends up being some sort of, dysfunctional now, but maybe functional marriage at the end of it. And I could see a world where Nike brings in a custom department and they do kind of like what Louis Vuitton did with Virgil and now with Pharrell. And they have this Nike, whatever you want to call it, an upper echelon version of their sneakers with Dom as creative director. Boom. I'm putting it out there right now.
That'd be
cool.
That would be pretty crazy.
But no, I mean that's again, legally speaking, because we got a lawyer here, none of that means anything. That's just my opinion. But I do want to bring you back, Zak, because obviously, we brought you on for your legal opinions here on this case and everything. But based on our conversations, based on that wall of sneakers behind you, I want to know how you took an obvious passion for sneakers and streetwear and maybe, this passion for legal and combined it into something, because I've never run across a lawyer that literally has a company called Sneaker and Streetwear Legal Services. That's fascinating to me. So tell us a bit about how you came to be a sneakerhead and how you came to form this business.
Just like you guys, I've been a sneakerhead my whole life, really. I grew up watching Jordan and the Knicks and all that stuff here in New York. And then my parents moved to Virginia. And as you can tell, it's very different kind of sneaker markets and just markets in general for fashion and all that. But, back then, the sneaker industry was a lot different as well. You didn't have the StockX's and the eBays and all the authentication, and, you didn't have what we have going on today. So I just grew up just like you guys, just, buying Jordans, buying Vans, very diverse collection of everything. And then, as the sneaker industry progressed, I stayed along with it. And I just remember buying a whole bunch of shoes in college. I was an Air Max 90 guy in college. After that, I was a big Jordan 1 guy. And then, right around 2014, 2015, Yeezy came out and all the Yeezy ones got big and all that. And that's sort of when I got involved. It was impossible to get a Yeezy. So I, went to SneakerCon. I went to all these, industry people that I know and started working with influencers like Jacques and, just talking to them to try and get the sneakers myself. And, I was just passionate and authentic. And, after just talking to them and doing business with them, they said, hey, I got a contract for you to read. And it really just came super organically like that. Like it was literally all my friends that were, influencers or resellers or had stores or had this just eventually came to me and said, read this contract, do this trademark for me, do this licensing deal. And I was working in-house for a whole bunch of big tech companies at a time, building my legal skills. And I was just known as the sneaker lawyer. I didn't like to wear suits and ties all the time. So I wear, fresh J's and t-shirts and stuff. And everyone in-house just said, hey, I got a question, go to that sneaker lawyer, go to that guy. So that was sort of how it started brewing for me, that there was a market for this. And, it's okay to be yourself, and it's okay to, work with these small brands and these small companies and also these big companies and these big brands, and sort of bring them together and, do as best I can there. And it's sort of just evolved organically like that. One thing led to the next. And I've been doing this for like 12 years now, and like at least 7 or 8 of it has been doing consistent work with Sneaker Legal, just working with creatives and just helping them out to protect their brand. So it's awesome. I'm super fortunate enough to have it go like that. And I love what I do. So it's definitely a blessing.
It's great, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I love that. You said you're up in New York, Zach?
Yeah. New York. Yep, exactly. New York, New Jersey area for sure.
So then the other part of this question, because this is called Cars and Kicks, is, and I might know the answer to this if you live in New York, but are you into cars at all? And if so, do you have anything? I know it's hard and very expensive to own cars in New York.
Yeah. Right? Yeah, it's definitely a conundrum. I see. I don't know as much about cars as you guys. I know sort of the legal spectrum of cars because I read all the cases, but I actually do have a car, and I like driving fast. So
Nice.
I growing up in Virginia, you had to have a car. Everyone was like miles away from each other. So I've had a plethora of cars, and I just got a nice new car, and I love it, and it's super fun driving fast.
So you gotta tell us about your first car. What was your first car?
Oh my gosh, it's gonna be embarrassing. But so my dad gave me a 1985 station wagon with the wooden side panels, like the Chevy Chase, Christmas movie. Oh my god,
That's actually kind of dope.
It was
awesome.
It was awesome. I put the whole soccer team in the back and went to practice every single day with it. But it was embarrassing, man. I'll tell you that much. I didn't like going up to school that one.
I don't know, man. That's one of those things that I get back then that I don't think I would have necessarily wanted to rock that when I was, a teenager either. However, now as a grown adult, I really appreciate that. And I think a lot of people our age are looking back on that fondly. And you look at people, like I'm trying to think, what's his name? Armchair Expert Podcast. Why am I blanking here? Big car guy, hosted Top Gear. Mary, help me out here, Nick. Why am I blanking? Dak Shepard. So he has an old Chevy with the wood panels, like from the 90s, 95, whatever Caprice. But he's got like I don't even know what he's got in it, but like a blown LS7 or something like that. It makes a ton of horsepower and whatnot. And it's like bringing back the cool factor that was there that we didn't appreciate when we're young now. So I don't know, man. I would wear that like with a badge of honor right now. Now where we're at, I'd say, I rocked a wooden panel station wagon in high school.
Yeah.
No, I agree. Looking back,
I feel like that's a
like
flex these days.
It's cool now, but back then I was like, oh God, like my friends had nicknames for it and stuff, but parents are always
Yep. Zach, you recently posted something. So you're at Sneaker Legal pretty much everywhere, right?
Yep.
I believe.
Yeah.
You recently posted something as you were talking about working with influencers and smaller creators and stuff. One of the things we've been trying to tie into these conversations is just all of our creative output, right? Like it's cars and kicks, but realistically we kind of enjoy each other's company because we're all doing something creative. We're all kind of pushing forward to do things. And one of the lawsuits that you recently posted or the filings that you recently posted was essentially TikTok, 2 girls on TikTok who are, one of them is direct copy kind of, of another. And you kind of, before we started recording, you kind of said there could be a big precedent set here with how that plays out, because I think it's interesting because Jacques and I know all too well how things can kind of go from, a great idea that we put out there to someone else that has more money to do it. And I won't point any fingers, but like we've all seen it happen. And part of that is just we're all in the same game, right? Like if we're having conversations about the shoe surgeon, we're all thinking about these types of things. So like it's natural for us to say, this is not something that I would do, but like the 10 craziest lawsuits in sneaker history, right? Like, and that's a common way that we all collectively think when we're all sharing same passion. So could you talk a little bit about that lawsuit and like how you kind of look at that? Because I think we're kind of, for better or worse, getting to uncharted waters in the kind of creator economy or gig economy that is essentially we're all looking at each other online and, for better or worse, doing similar things. So what does that look like and how do you see that playing out? And especially, how that could potentially tie into sneaker creators and YouTubers and all of those types of people.
Yeah, that's a good one. That one's super interesting to me. I mean, to your point, like, are we running out of creative ideas? Like you said, everyone's sort of doing the same thing. When one account posted, someone else will just rip it and take it and put it on theirs. And I think, that's a big question because, I talk about legal and business, but from a business side, that stuff's going to get boring to watch. If everyone does the same kind of video, no one's going to spend 30 seconds watching that, and then, putting my legal hat on, it really depends. And that's such a lawyer answer. But like using this case that we're talking about now, the best way to protect your kind of ideas is through intellectual property. Intellectual property is patents, which are like inventions. You could have design patents. You could have, plant patents, like weird kind of inventions. Then trademarks, as you guys know, Nike logos, names could be trademarks, and then copyrights. Copyrights are sort of just, stuff that's embodied into some type of tangible medium, like a song recording or a drawing, or, when Jacques makes a video, he owns that copyright to it. So from a legal perspective, the only way you go after these quote unquote copycats, no matter what they're copying or how much they're copying, is really to find a legal avenue. So some of the stuff that they're doing, like, if I do a video on the shoe surgeon and you guys do a video on the shoe surgeon, there are two videos on the shoe surgeon. I can't just sue you and say, hey, you copied my video. We talked about the same thing, because there's certain stuff that are public or, that are free for everyone to use and do and stuff. And I think this case is a great example. I don't, it shouldn't make it all the way, and there shouldn't be a precedent set, because it would be crazy if there was. But this is a great example of someone saying, hey, you're copying too much of mine. One picture that I saw in the lawsuit was, Alyssa's Amazon store and then, Nicole's Amazon store. And there were like 20 products that were the same. Come on now, if you look at my shopping cart, it's going to be the same as, other people, like there's stuff like that would be silly to, to say that you can't do. But there are other ones where it's like, she took a picture of the dress in the same white lighting and the same this and the same that. And like, legally speaking, it would be tough to find like a copyright claim there, because there's still her photos, they're her originality and, all that kind of stuff. So I think this would be a good case that could test those boundaries to see that. But ultimately it comes down to what you're just saying. Like, everyone is creative in their own way. And all it takes is, even legally, a modicum, a little teeny bit of creativity to make yourself different, like we could have different hats on, and that would be different in the legal perspective,
That's interesting.
It's an interesting
That's
case.
interesting. That makes me think back to when I was doing music more. And sometimes for TV shows, I would do sound alikes, because I don't know, they couldn't get Jay-Z to do a song.
Right.
Or they couldn't clear a Jay-Z song. And so they would have me do a sound alike that sounds similar to like a Jay-Z song. And they would use that instead for the feel of it. And it sounds like this is kind of where some of this other stuff is going.
Yep. Exactly. That's pretty much, there's legal ways to get around these kind of things. And, some states have laws that say you can't use sound alikes, or you can't use this person's name, image, like this, or personality rights and such. And, that's where you get in trouble legally.
Yeah, I think it's also really important for people to hear the first thing you said before you put your legal hat on is it's just bad for business, right? I think that's the thing that we keep coming back to in conversations over the years. And like, even from your perspective, it's like, there's like, do what you're meant to do, like find your thing. And it doesn't have to be exactly the same thing as somebody else. Like, cause people like you for who you are. Like, Erik and I have very similar, car connections and thoughts. Probably Jacques and I have very similar sneaker connections and thoughts, but like the three of us together make for really interesting conversations, because we're all slightly different in that pie of what great content is, in my opinion. And it's, like, it's great talking to you too, because I think, for me as somebody who's been, like we talked about before we started recording, the lawsuits that we've seen come and go, the contracts that we've been a part of for the last 15 plus years, it's cool to see you find a way to, like you mentioned, like be the guy, with a fresh pair of kicks on and a t-shirt. Cause like Jacques knows, I've been fighting through corporate America for 15 years, trying to wear baseball caps and sneakers and hoodies all the time, because I that's how I feel comfortable as myself, so it's really cool to see you've been able to do that. I'm glad you were able to come on with us.
Yeah, no problem. And I think it's a great tie into what you just said. Like, just I was able to be me and find my way to a fun career that I like in sneakers, and you guys are doing the same thing. And from a creative standpoint, that's how you differentiate yourself and stay away from these freaking lawsuits. So I totally agree. Thank you guys for having me.
I think it's safe to say we now at the Cars and Kicks podcast unofficially have ourselves a lawyer to protect anything that we say moving forward. So
Yeah.
I got it.
this was great having you on, Zach, man. I appreciate you coming on.
Before you get out of here, Zach, I'm gonna ask you 2 questions. One, how do you think the suit with Dom is going to end up? And 2, can you sue somebody for hate speech if they continue to wear Giants hats in a podcast?
I should have worn my Texas Rangers hat, and we get a bad Texas.
Is that allowed?
I think to answer your second question first, definitely for the Giants. Like, there's no question. There's other teams that have.
Hey, this isn't fair. You guys are ganging up on me now.
Yeah.
Oh,
exactly.
man.
But yeah, I hate to give the lawyer answer, but 90% of cases, whatever number of cases settle. So I'm hoping that they settle, just like I said in the beginning, and you guys said all throughout. Dom's the man in the industry. He's a great person to have on your team, and they have such a good relationship from the past, and they could do so much for the future. So I hope that, they end up settling, and, Nike would be smart to do that. Dom would be smart to do that. And, I think there's some scary precedents that could be set, if this case actually goes a little further, and Nike shouldn't really want to do that. They have a lot going on this, and just by filing this lawsuit scared the shit out of a lot of people enough, So I think, if they actually take this out and do not settle, there could be some scary precedents to set for Nike for sure. So I think, it would be smart if both sides did settle and, found some way to work with each other. So
yeah, love that. Perfect. Well, thank you, Zach, for coming on. For those that need legal advice, if you want a consultation, or if you have any questions about your brand, growing your brand, protecting your brand, the copyrights of your brand, the law of your brand, corporate entities, contracts, all of those things, make sure you visit sneaker.legal. That's where you can get all the information. It's Sneaker and Streetwear Legal Services. Zach is the principal, and he can help you through those things. And just let him know that the Cards and Kicks podcast sent you. We appreciate that. Not that we get an affiliate link or anything, but just let him know. Just let him know.
Good.
Just let him know. Just let him know that we sent you. He's a good guy, and he keeps the industry, the sneaker industry and the culture updated on what's going on. And it's good to have a voice, a reasoned, factual voice, as sneaker culture can be very opinionated. Me being a big part of that opinionated conversation. So it's good to have some facts in there.
Yeah.
With that being said, I'm Jacques Slade. You can find me all over the internet at Cousteau, but I'm here with Erik and Nick. Give them your info so they know where to find you guys.
Yeah, I'm Erik Valdez. You can find me at Erik Valdez just about anywhere.
And I'm at Nick Engvall everywhere.
And that is Cars and Kicks. Thank y'all.
Yeah, and that's Cards and Kicks. Thanks for joining us, guys. Peace.